Hey there, you wonderful listeners. I have a question for you. Do you want to make a podcast? Well, Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place and for free. How can you beat that? It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And here is how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, there are Q&A and poll options available, and those are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I've discovered Spotify for Podcasters, it has made doing my shows like the Steam Machine Podcast, Yabs Pod, and the JRPG Report much, much easier to do. Like being able to just go on there, record them, upload it, boom, it's done. I don't have to pay for a site service to host or anything like that. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend that you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. This week on the Steam Machine Podcast, welcome back for part 2 of Yakuza. Welcome back for part 2 of Yakuza. Cue the music. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Steam Machine Podcast. My name is Dalton, and joining me as always with the Destructo Bros.
What's up? It's Nate.
Hey, it's Willie. How you doing? How you doing?
How you doing? But doing. How's the last 2 weeks been on you, gentlemen?
Pretty good, man. I've been playing a lot of Yakuza. It's been a pretty fun couple of weeks too. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge finally came out, so
yeah,
we got a group of 6 over on the Tadpog Discord together and played through the entire game. I got to be my boy Raphael, so it was a really fun time. But it's a really good game. I will say I played it a little bit single player since then too. It's a lot more fun with friends, and I think everybody kind of expected that from it.
Yeah, it seems like one of those types that it would be like get your buddies together and play through the game and experience it as the turtles and not just a turtle, you know? I mean, that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, it's really cool. The online's pretty decent where you can have like play through arcade mode and story mode as a group. So we did arcade mode when we first went through it. But like one of the things is like you can, in the story mode, you can actually level your turtles up to gain new abilities and stuff, which you can't get in the arcade mode. But it's been harder to get groups together for something like that. So I've been kind of grinding that on my own a little bit. But it's pretty good, dude. I like it a lot. Like, and then there's a secret unlockable character, too. So there's the 4 turtles, April O'Neil, Splinter, not Shredder, Splinter, and then 1 secret unlockable character. Which I don't think anybody's surprised by who it is.
I was going to say, can I guess? Is it riding that train high on cocaine?
It absolutely
Casey Jones,
is.
better watch your speed. Yeah, I figured Hell yeah, I would play as Casey Jones. I always thought he was a badass in the movies. Although I did like, oh my god, I'm really bad with who's who. The one in the movie with the red, I think the red.
Raphael?
Is that Raphael?
Yeah.
Is he the one in that movie that gets in the live action movie that I had on VHS back in the day? Kids of VHS is an old. Well, we'll get into that. But it's the one that yells to the sky and he's like, "Damn!"
Yep.
Yeah. I used to. Oh man, that whole movie's great. I don't know how it holds up, but it's great.
The one complaint I have is about the game is all the characters have an even stat spread. So like you can have 3, 2, or 1 in a stat, and each turtle has a total of 6 like bars in each stat. So like you can be like a 3, 2, 1 on strength, speed, and distance. What's the word for that? Whatever.
Reach.
Range. Yeah. So you can have a 3, 2, 1 stat. Like you get how that works, right? Casey Jones has 7. It's not fair.
It's the hockey mask. It adds a point. Oh, that's
so
like,
it just automatically makes Casey Jones the best character in the game for no reason.
Well, I mean, how hard do you have?
Were.
Yeah, and how hard do you have to work to unlock him? Because
not
it's
very hard. You just got to beat the story mode.
Oh well, then there you go. I was gonna say because if you have to put in some work, then it's like hell yeah. Now I have the powerful character. But yeah, my buddy Danny used to always say, you know, your car has a certain amount of horsepower, but if you slap some stickers on there, each sticker adds 5 horsepower.
It's true. It's true.
And I figured that like hockey mask, that's like there's a lot of room for stickers on there, bro. He could get even more powerful.
And there's a lot of horsepower in a hockey mask.
Hell yeah, there is. Just ask Jason Voorhees. Oh, you know what would be fun? A beat 'em up style game like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but you play as the big serial killer guys from like the movies, like, you know, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Pinhead, like all these different. I mean, the guy from Scream. It could be a blast.
Yeah, dude, I could just picture Freddy now. Be so good.
Yeah, dude, I could picture Jason just like shuffling along with his machete. Oh, and he's like slow, but he's got good range and strength. He's just real slow. Freddy's fast with like small range. Yeah, dude, it would be.
The problem is I'm imagining like a beat 'em up game, which makes me think of fighting games too. And I'm imagining a side-scrolling Freddy, and I'm just thinking of Choi from King of Fighters. He's doing little tornado spins and all that.
He needs Chang to help him out.
He needs Chang.
What's the creepy fucking guy from Soul Calibur? Voldo. Yeah, I saw this thing back in the day. It was a magazine. I think it was one of the PlayStation magazines. I don't remember which one it was. But they were casting Soul Calibur for, I think, if they were going to do it for a movie. And of course, Voldo, Marilyn Manson.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I'm like, yeah, I could absolutely see that. Just wrap his face up in mummy stuff and make him just make weird body movements, and he fit the bill perfectly. Oh, man. I have a cool little story. So you guys know I play Shroud of the Avatar, right?
Yeah.
And I was playing it the other night, and I'm running around on the overworld map, and I see this other player running towards me on his horse. And I'm like, okay, I'm probably about to get murdered because, you know, this game's like the Ultima Online spiritual successor. I assume people are going to have that same mentality, right? So like I take off and I run towards a deer because the way the overhead map works is like, say you see a deer, if you run into it, it'll take you into an encounter zone where you can then run around and find deer and mine ore and things like that. So I run into there to get away from this guy, and he DMs me and he says, "Hey man, do you have a horse?" I was like, No, I don't. I've only been playing a few months, and I kind of only play here and there. And he goes, "Oh man, well it's a pain in the ass to get one, and it takes a lot of gold. I'll go catch one for you." For real? What do I owe you? Nothing, man. So he goes and he fucking catches a wild horse and rigs it up and trains it to be able to ride, sends that to me, plus a sword and plus a cloak that was badass. And I was like, dude, thank you so much. Like, what do I owe you? And he's like, oh, you don't owe me anything, man. He goes, I know how tough it is starting out in this game, and like less and less people log in, so it's nice to see people online. And if you're new, I want to help anybody I can to make them keep playing. And I was like, MMOs need more of you.
And then he killed you and took the horse back.
Now that would be the perfect cap on the end of it. But no, it's really, I'm just telling this story because it's such a nice thing to run into in MMO games, because it's not, I think it's because it's not a popular game that the players who actually play it appreciate it more.
Whereas you get people in, I'll say WoW and even Final Fantasy 14, lol, get good noob, good luck, where and those people far outweigh the ones who are looking to help others, and it casts a bad shadow on those types of games and stuff like that. And I think that's because there are more people playing it. So I don't know. I thought that was cool. Just shout out to whoever that dude was for being a good person. It made me smile. Yeah, that's what I was going for, dude. It was a nice little story that I had happen to me. I do want to give an update on the Fantasy League, gentlemen.
All right.
Because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles releasing, that was one of Jez's games. So there have been a couple releases since I dropped the game. I went and I looked at the history of how the Warriors games have been doing recently, right? Like Dynasty Warriors, Dragon Quest Heroes, and those types of games. And I saw their scores, so I dropped Fire Emblem Three Hopes or whatever it was. That was the Warriors call. Yes, and I have a bid in for a game right now, but we'll see how that goes. So I don't believe I've had any releases since the last time we've talked. But Jezza has had 2. Mario Strikers Battle League.
What did that get? Because I heard some mixed responses to that game.
Got a 74.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Yeah. What have you heard? I haven't heard much about it, so please inform me.
Just a lot of people are complaining, and a lot of people are defending that it's an incomplete game. Like that there's a lot of stuff that's not been released for it yet, as far as it's not a game that I've kept close track of because I'm not super interested in it. Yeah. But I've just heard a lot of complaints that there's a lot of stuff that's not in it yet, and that they keep planning on releasing things at a slower pace into the game, and people aren't a big fan of that, and other people are like, no, it's fine.
Okay. That sounds like the typical internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, well, hopefully it ends up perking up a little bit. If not, Nintendo can afford a miss or two here and there.
Yeah.
But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge got an 87.
Damn.
So pulled him in another 17 points. He is firmly in second place. He's catching up to me. As far as projected points, I'm still ahead, but not by much anymore. So we'll see how that goes. Let me scan to see if anybody else has had any releases. Mike, one of his games is not coming out, so it got a 0.
That sucks.
The Quarry did come out, which is that game that has David Arquette in it, which looks awesome. I'm just going to say I watched PlayStation Access. I think it was play the first hour or so of it. It looked really cool. It got a 79.
Okay.
Cody had AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, which, fun fact, I learned the other day that AI The Somnium Files is related to the 999 series.
Oh.
That got an 85.
Dang, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and he hasn't got any points for it yet, so I think that's a relatively new score, so that could go up or down before it's finalized. Diablo Immortal came out. It got a 62.
Who got saddled with that?
that was Jeremy from Oregon, who has not done anything since the draft. So, but I will say that Stephanie had that counter picked, so she gained 8 points from that.
Smart. That game just seemed, the moment they announced it, I thought that game was going to be a disaster, and they did nothing to change my opinion about that since then. Don't you people have phones?
Oh my God, that's right. Don't you people have phones? Bro, not the market. Anyway, Lost Judgment, Philly G, Lost Judgment, the Kaito Files came out, which is, I think, an expansion for Lost Judgment, which is the Yakuza spinoff. You know what I'm saying, the detective series. It got a 78. And those are the most recent releases. So as of now, the rankings from first to last are me, Jeremy, Cody, Phil, Steph, Mike, Chad, and Oregon Jeremy.
But if you think about it, all of you are really ahead of those of us who never played in the first place.
That's a fair point, sir. It's a fair point.
It's true. We're all still even. Is anybody below even at this point? I surely hope not.
Oh, you mean like, is anybody in negative points?
Yeah.
No, not yet. The lowest score is 19, and that is Oregon Jeremy. Other than that, everybody else is doing all right. They're at least over 20. So, I do have one other thing before we get into the Yakuza chat, and if you guys have anything else you'd like to talk about. So last night I started a audiobook called Kayfabe, Stories You're Not Supposed to Hear from a Pro Wrestling Production Company Owner, and it was written by Sean Oliver, who was behind Kayfabe Commentaries, which is like a thing that started as like some shoot interviews that built into like this wrestling media not conglomerate, but like a decent sized business. And
not to be confused with John Oliver of Last Week Tonight.
No, yeah, not to be confused with John Oliver. But he wrote a really good book, dude. I started it and then listened to the entire thing. It was like 8.5 hours.
Dang.
Damn.
Right? I just put it on while I was doing stuff last night.
That's like 4 podcasts, bro.
Yeah, I know. And it was really good, and a lot of insight onto these interviews and things that I've watched on Kayfabe Commentaries and things that happen behind the scenes. Like, I didn't realize that he once paid Conan $500 in a as a down deposit type thing, and then Conan fucked him and never came to do the show. So,
Orale.
Orale. But yeah, so I just if you have a vague wrestling fandom, I recommend, if you ever get like if you just like have a free book on Audible, which they do sometimes, pick up Kayfabe, man. It's good. It's a good book.
Yeah, I like some behind the scenes stories I've never heard before. That does sound kind of nice.
Yeah, I just started a book last night too. It's If It Bleeds by Stephen King. It's actually a collection of I think it's 4 novellas in it. So I'm like about halfway through the first one. So far, it's pretty good. Not scary at all yet, but Is
If It Bleeds the one that has the Shawshank story in it?
No, it's not. This one came out in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is a new collection of novellas.
The name sounded familiar to me, but it must just be from when I was looking up a bunch of Stephen King stuff then, yeah.
I do have the one with Shawshank on it, and I haven't read it yet. For some reason, this one was just calling to me instead.
It's a cool cover. I like that little kitty on the front. Plus, Stephen King, fucking good.
Yeah, Stephen King's definitely top 3 author for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of books, real quick, I really want to get into the Wheel of Time.
I do not have time for that.
and that's the thing is man, there's a lot of books in that series. But I have a game on GOG that's based on that series called The Wheel of Time. It's like a point and click adventure type thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just play that. I'm sure it's the same thing.
If the game interests me at all, then I'll check out the books. You know what I mean?
You're just going to get all your literature through point and click adventure games. Next, you're going to play Discworld and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And...
Hey, I've always wanted to play I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream just because I've heard how dismal it is.
Free on something recently?
Was it?
I think it's probably free on GOG.
Yeah,
I think that's how I ended up getting it.
Free on GOG for a minute.
Either way, I think that game's normally pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of those types of games I'd like to get to eventually. I know you're not looking forward to a Willy, but Myst. But we don't have to play the original. You know what I mean? We could play one of the more updated Myst games that is supposedly better. Like the newest version of Myst apparently has a VR mode.
Huh.
So that's interesting. The reviews on Steam. Oh, that's right. I forgot Dagon has the VR mode.
Have you not? You don't have a VR headset for your PC.
I do not. I have it for PlayStation, but
I actually got on the VR Dagon for a minute there.
How was it?
Just what you'd expect it to be.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty good.
Just looking around oh, fuck yeah. On PlayStation VR, my favorite thing to do is 360 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like these fucking drones that are flying by these big waterfalls and shit, and you can just look around and down. And
I was watching one of those on my headset. I was watching one of flying over San Francisco, and I swear at one point I looked down and I almost fell over because I got I don't know what you call vertigo or something, looking down from being that high up and just moving. I was like, oh holy! I had to catch myself on the wall.
What am I standing on? No.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's weird that happened because I play Beat Saber all the time and don't get any kind of weird motion thing from VR anymore. But that just threw me for such a loop. Oh my god!
Yeah, that's when I was playing Wipeout in VR. I didn't get as nauseous as I thought I would because they have a stabilization thing for inside the car.
Yeah.
But holy fuck, dude! Are you going fast as fuck? Oh my god! It's I can't imagine being in an actual vehicle and going those speeds where everything going past you is just
yeah. Dude, grip in VR was something.
Ooh.
Oh, dude.
God, that sounds
nuts. I bet. I bet, dude. That'd be fucking wild. So, is there anything else you guys would like to touch on before we dive into some Yakuza chat?
No.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Then I believe last week we left off, and we don't necessarily have to go through like every single story beat, but last week I think we left off at chapter 4.
Yep.
So I believe the big part of was it chapter 5 or chapter 6 where things really fucking ramped up. Nate, I know you're probably a little more familiar with the story. Because fair warning to everyone, if you've listened to Yab's Pod this week, you'll hear it too. I'm sick, so I have scatterbrain, and I apologize. So I'm going to rely on you guys for points.
So just a quick little thing, like the way this game kind of laid out is you'll go between two different characters. You have Kiryu and Majima, which we kind of went over a little bit last week too. And the way the game's laid out is you do 2 chapters with Kiryu and then 2 chapters with Majima. And it goes all the way down there until you get to the final chapter, which is chapter 17, where you can switch between the characters in some ways. Yep. So we left, when we last were talking about, we left on the end of a Majima chapter where there was the cliffhanger where he was holding the knife to the girl he rescued because you didn't know whether he was going to go through with the assassination or not. So then, right after that, it flips you back over to Kiryu. So you have to sit 2 chapters sitting there like, what happened?
And that's one thing about this game did very well, is like laying that last hook. And they're like, oh, what's going to happen? And then they would just have you reeling. Yeah. And by the time you were at the end of the Kiryu part, say, there was another hook at that part. And then you get the Majima, and you're doing all that, but you're like, oh, but what was happening with Kiryu? And it was like a cycle of that.
Yeah, and it was a struggle to put this game down at times because it did such a good job of making you want to follow the story and find out what happens next. But at the same time, all the side quests were like, this is incredible too, but I want to follow the story, but I've got to see this side quest through.
Even when you get up to the grand finale at the very end, it still manages to leave you on cliffhangers and switch characters on you a couple of times.
Yeah, it really did in that final push. Well, I mean, we'll get there, but like you're absolutely right that even to the very end, this game was like hook, line, sinker, reel, hook, line, sinker, reel. Like,
yeah,
and not just the fishing mini games.
Hey. Yeah, so I guess moving from there, like, if you want to talk about like chapter 5 and 6, which are the next 2 Kiryu chapters, those are kind of like, except for the end of chapter 6, they were kind of calmer chapters in my opinion, where you start to learn about working with Tachibana Real Estate as Kiryu, and you'd help them kick some squatters out of one of the buildings Tachibana bought. And then in order to celebrate, you kind of go to the bar Serena where to meet Oda to have a little drink to celebrate. And Kiryu runs into Nishiki there, which was a surprise because he didn't realize Nishiki was actually a regular at this bar. So it was kind of an awkward meeting between the two of them. I was like, what are you doing here? Blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Well, halfway through the night, they start drinking everything. And Oda still hasn't shown up to the bar. And so eventually he ends up coming up to the bar. His face is just covered in blood. He's like he had the crap beat out of him. He kind of stumbles into the bar and falls over. And then a couple of Yakuza guys come in who were apparently working under Lieutenant Iwano. Because we've messed a lot with Kuze to this point, but this time Iwano's kind of taking a point on it. And yeah.
Oh, I just want to say Iwano is like the I'll call him the stylish looking one of the guys. Like he had the flashy purple suit that I would totally wear. I'm just saying. But he had like the hair, not like quite a pompadour, but his hair was more done than the other guys. He was definitely the lavish of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
His hair gave me some like 70s, 80s country singer type vibes almost.
Yeah, dude, he definitely had that vibe.
Some Conway Twitty hair.
With the purple suit and the big hair, yeah. A regular Conway Twitty over here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Iwano.
Iwano Cash. Yeah, so I continue.
Yeah, and so basically, then Iwano comes in, and Nishiki is super uncomfortable through this whole thing, because at this point, Kiryu had quit the Yakuza and was working as a civilian for Tachibana, and he's still hanging out with Kiryu, so it's kind of an awkward situation for him. Anyway, it kind of all resolves in a way that, like, Iwano's like, give us Tachibana and this is all over. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. And of course, Kiryu's like, no. And so Iwano kind of like threatens, like, this is your last warning, and walks out the door, leaving them to tend to Oda's wounds and all that kind of stuff.
Did something about this game that I noticed, and it might be just a thing because I've noticed it in animes too and things. Did you notice that like there was a very specific way that they would say certain characters' names, like in certain situations, like one that we're gonna get to, like when Kiryu would say like Nishikiyama, he would never say Nishikiyama. He would always be Nishiki.
It was kind of like that hushed whisper. Nishiki.
Yeah, the little dots at the end of it. It was always like it was just always like Nishiki. Anyway, yeah, it's just something I noticed.
Yeah.
Is this when you fight? Is this when you go to the club and meet Owano as the end of chapter 5, or is that
that's the end of chapter 6?
Okay.
It's in chapter 6. It's not even quite the end of chapter 6.
Right.
Chapter 6 actually is a pretty good chapter because it is super action packed. So like at this point, like all of Owano's men are after you and everything. So you get attacked by Owano's goons, and they were told to take you to the boss. So like you end up trying to escape, essentially try to get out of the city because you're kind of screwed because they're after you from every single angle. So you end up coming to this strip club, and the stripper's like, "Hey, I know these guys are all after you. Why don't you come in here? There's actually a secret exit in the back of this club, and we'll let you through."
This was chapter 6. My God, this game is so dense. This part was cool as hell. My bad.
That bitch.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say is that bitch.
Yeah, it's like Kiryu's like, well, I don't have anywhere else to go because I can't go back to the Serena bar because I don't want to put that girl in risk. So this woman wants me to help me escape. So he goes into that. So anyway, the back of this club ends up having like an entrance to the sewers in it. So you go into the sewers, and this is one of the most epic scenes early in the game. You go into the sewers, you start walking down there, and you just hear this engine start roaring. And you're like, what is going on? And you see these headlights come on, and the engine roars some more. And all of a sudden, you just see, on a motorcycle, Lieutenant Kuze again, with a giant steel beam in his hand, riding you down from the other end of the sewer. And Kiryu's just kind of standing there like, what? And it's such a great scene because he just bashes you, he wrecks his bike at the same time with that steel pole. And then
it's just like, Kiryu!
Smack! And then you get the fun time of fighting Lieutenant Kuze for the second time.
Yeah, and he's a hoss in that fight. Like,
yeah.
That,
I felt like he was really hard to stun and really hard to bring down.
Yeah, because like since he had that steel pipe, he used that as a weapon through the fight too. Because like the first time he fought him was bare knuckle all the way. This time he had that steel rod with him, which I think made him a little bit harder to knock down. And you had to figure out ways to kind of get around him and get your punches in.
Yeah.
I'll say when that chick like leads you out that door and she's like, yeah, you go this way, and he's like, thank you, I'll come back and I'll pay you back for the
as a customer.
And she's like. He walks away and she's like, I don't think that's going to happen there, big guy, or something like that. And I was like, oh, you did not just fuck over Kiryu. And she did.
Yeah.
She was one of Owano's girls.
Yeah. So you finally get to the end of this sewer system. You go up these stairs and you enter into another building up there. You find yourself in a disco that is completely empty, except for two people. You walk in and you see Lieutenant Owano and a girl just dancing in the disco. Like they have the whole place to themselves and they're just sitting there dancing with each other. And Kiryu walks in like, what the hell? And so like Owano starts talking to him. He's like, hey man, all you gotta do is turn us in. Live the life of luxury like me. Just turn this guy in, Tachibana. Just give him to us and this can all be over. Walk out the door. You're free.
Yeah, because he's like, when he comes, he's acting all buddy with you, and he's basically talking about, I don't really care about this Yakuza shit that much. What I'm all about is living the high life, going to the fancy golf course they got uptown, eating these big dinners and hot babes and all that. You could have that too. Just give me Tachibana.
Don't you want a purple suit, Kiryu? As he's dancing. Yeah, that's basically his thing. Is he like I said, he's the lavish one. He like the life of luxury guy for sure.
Yeah, and so obviously you've gotten to know Kiryu well enough at this point that you kind of know what his answers is. He's like, no, screw that. And so what does Owano do to be like, no, Kiryu, listen to me right now. What does Owano do, Dalton?
Oh, yeah. And instead of like, yelling at him or threatening him, he just puts a fucking bullet straight into, I don't know if he shot her in the chest or the head of the chick he's dancing with. Boom. And now she's laying on the floor, bleeding out dead. And Kiryu turns back around like, what the fuck? Basically. And he's just like still pointing the gun at her, smoke coming out of the gun, and he's basically like, maybe you didn't hear me the first time.
and he's like, this building, I have it surrounded completely by Yakuza men right now. You walk out the door, they all have guns, you're dead the second you step out the door. Just come join me, give me Tachibana, everything will be all right. Kiryu's still stubborn as hell. Is like, no, I must do what's best for Kazuma.
Dude, that was a tough bluff to call.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was me being like, oh yeah, okay, so Kiryu really don't give a fuck. Like, he is out to do what he is set out to do. Because
he says something like that, like he's prepared to die. He doesn't care if he lives or dies, but he does care if he's going to do something he hates, and he hates the idea of teaming up with Awano.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck you, Barney.
The purple dinosaur. That's so good. It's actually a really good name for him. So anyway, Kiryu ends up walking out. He's like, chest held high. He's prepared to get shot from every direction as he walks out the door. And then he walks out the door, and nothing happens. Like, it was a huge bluff that Awano left him. And Awano, you just get a visual of Awano sitting back there. It's like, damn, I can't believe he didn't fall for that. I should have known. No, he was more like, you can't threaten an idiot like that. They'll never buy it.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, while he's saying that, he sits down on the disco stage and he lights a cigarette and he takes a drag. And he's just staring at this chick he just shot. And then he's just reminiscing about Kiryu while he's looking at this dead woman. Just like, what the fuck? Yakuza don't give a fuck.
Man. And as he walks out the door and he sees nobody start to shoot him, he actually sees Nishikiyama in his car chilling out there. And Nishiki's like, you idiot, get in. We're going to go somewhere safe. And so Nishiki ends up taking him out, and they just start driving out of Kamurocho.
Yeah, and I was very curious as to where this was going to go. And Willie, I know you saw this most recently, so I'll be very curious to know your reaction to it. So you're driving. Kiryu falls asleep. Kiryu wakes up, and it's almost like that. There was a scene in The Sopranos where Christopher's girlfriend had like ratted on him, or so was working with the FBI, and they found out. So they go on a ride with Silvio out in the middle of the woods. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what this reminded me of, because Kiryu wakes up and him and Nishiki are just like at this roadblock. I don't know what it was. It was like a roadblock
thing for a dead
trail.
End in the middle of nowhere with a roadblock into the forest, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And immediately I was like, oh, I've seen this before. And you get out and Kiryu's kind of standing there, and I believe that he's talking to Nishiki without even looking at him, because and Nishiki's standing behind him just like holding the pistol up. Now, Willie, what did you think was going to happen here? Like, did you think that he was going to kill him? Did you think he was going to actually shoot him? Like, how did you think that it was going to go?
Honestly, roughly went down the way I thought it was going to once the pistol was pointed at the back of his head. I didn't know what was going to happen up till this point, but this is pretty much what I thought was going to happen. I thought he was going to stand behind him, he was going to talk big, Kiryu was going to say something to him and make him lose his resolve.
And all Kiryu said to him was like, I love you, Nishiki, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that was the thing. He's like walking towards him, he's like, do it, just shoot me, just do it. And Nishiki's like, Kiryu, with the dots at the end, Nishiki. And there was a lot of that going on, and
Kagome, Inuyasha. But like, I mean, the reasoning he gave made sense too, because he's telling him, if they catch you, man, they're going to do worse than. I'm giving you a clean exit right here, because they'll torture you, they will break you, they will destroy you in ways that I can't bear to know that you're going through. Just let me get you out of this.
I will say where I thought it was going, and then Nate, I'm gonna let you take back over. Where I thought it was going was I thought that Nishiki was going to be like, well, if you're going to do this, I can't see you go down this path, turn the gun on himself, and just boom.
Oh, God. That's been the worst.
Yikes.
That's what I thought was going to happen. And when that didn't happen, I was a little relieved. But still, the way the scene played out was still very impactful, and I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah, like, yes. It was a super impactful scene. And, like, this is the one time in the game that I think struck me emotionally the most, because it was just the whole... They're talking about how they're not kids anymore. Like, they're adults. They have to take adult responsibility and do things and all that kind of stuff. And the scene, like we said, Nishiki ends up, like, being completely unable to do it. And Kiryu's like, it's okay, I'm letting you off, we're no longer sworn brothers, all that kind of stuff, so if whatever happens to me is no longer your responsibility, essentially.
And then Kiryu gets in the car and drives off and just leaves Nishiki out there in the middle of fucking nowhere.
I still wonder how Nishiki got
really
back.
hard about that too.
Like, I'm thinking to myself, how far did they drive? How far does he have to walk? This is before cell phones. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say this is 1988. He has a pager, but he doesn't have any way to dial out.
Yeah, he's not the guy with the bag phone in.
yeah, exactly. Unless bag phone guy was just happening to stroll by. It was just like, oh, you need a phone? Here you go.
I need a battery first.
Oh,
though.
sorry, it's out of battery. Yeah.
Yeah. But then Kiryu leaves, like I said, and that's where that chapter ends, and you head back into Majima.
And again, it ends on a what the fuck?
Yeah, because you still have no idea what Kiryu's going to do, because you know all of Wano's men are still after him, and he doesn't have like a safe place to be. I think at this point, he tried to go back to his apartment at some point during that chapter, and they were burning it to the ground.
Yeah. I think the start of chapter 9 is literally you coming in onto your own apartment burning.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, there's. Oh, hold on. I'll get the actual numbers, but there. Continue, please.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Nick.
So anyway, that's where chapter 6 ends and 7 begins, and you're back with Majima and Sotenvor, and you finally get to figure out how that knife scene ends.
Yeah.
I'll say, once you're this far into the game, you are bought the hell in. I looked up the stats on Steam. The 31.8% of people completed chapter 8. 27.0% of people completed chapter 16, which is the next to last chapter, which means the moment you got to the midpoint of the game, the moment you got all these story hooks in, less than 10% of the people gave up between those 2 points of the mid game and the end game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really great storytelling.
Yeah, because I knew the second, like, when the last episode Willie had gotten to chapter 4, I knew that if he could get to chapter 6 to chapter 7, that he was going to have an impossible time turning the game off, and I think that's ended up what happened to him.
And that's why, like, in our chats, I was telling Willie, like, this game's kind of like Trails in the Sky, where it's like, it's a slow burn. Not that this game is a slow burn, but you know what I mean? It really, like, once you get about halfway, it ramps up and really starts kicking in, like, where you're just like, holy shit, what's going to happen next? And I know you're both going to roll your eyes, but I'm going to say Persona 5 is also a lot like that, where, like, the first, few hours is very much world building. But then once it kicks off, and there's a very big moment that kicks off, from there on, you're like, oh shit, all right, let's go. You know what I'm saying? And I love games like that, where they can just hit you with something that emotionally makes you go, oh, I am fucking in. I am all in. You know what I mean? For sure. I want to say the start of chapter 7, we're getting into, I was very, very happy to see that Majima didn't slice that girl in half. Right? Because I know this is one of those things where, like, an evil woman could absolutely kill me, because if she's like a cute little Japanese girl, I'm going to be like, I am going to be nice to you, and you're going to just, like, cut me while I'm asleep type thing. Not that she was like that, but I'm just saying, I didn't want to see her get hurt, because she seems like a very nice little sweet chick. And
the irony is, we just had that scene with Kiryu where we're talking about, here's your safe exit or whatever. And I'm like, whatever's going on with her, man, the end of this Wakazashi is going to be way nicer for her than whatever's coming ahead of it. I was disappointed in Majima for not going through with it.
Ooh, it's a different take.
Yeah. That is a different take.
Yeah, because I was definitely like, I hope he doesn't kill this girl, because, like, she definitely seemed important, and I wanted to know where the story ended up going with her in it.
Oh, and did the story go?
It went. It really did. So at that point, like, when this chapter starts, you're actually in a club storage warehouse. Like, not his club, but he actually got in touch with one of the other club owners in town and is keeping her in this storage shed behind their club. And,
he's trying to figure out where Lee is at, right? After that confrontation.
Yeah, so he eventually does find Lee. Like, Lee was the guy, the acupuncturist and massage therapist kind of guy. So you end up finding him in, like, a Chinese, like, hospital that's not sanctioned, kind of like an underground hospital. And you get together with him, and Lee's like, we have to get her out of here. Like, there's no way we can keep her here at this point.
Real quick, before we move on, I do want to say there's a scene, because this will tie into something I'll bring up later.
Yeah.
There's a scene when it's just Majima and Makoto-chan in the warehouse, where he asks her, like, "You're blind. Why are you wearing a watch?" Right? And she's like, "Oh, well, it reminds me of I think it was her mother gave it to her, and it used to play a song, but it doesn't play that song anymore." And she takes it off, and she's like, "But you're right. This is just me holding on to the past." And she sets it down, and Majima picks it up, and then he just like puts it in his pocket, and then that's it. But yeah, just that little moment. I'm gonna need that moment for later. So yeah, continue.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like you go on and you're to go find Lee, and you start to ask, like, so why is she blind and all this? And you find out that basically she was human trafficked and all that kind of stuff, and all this horrible stuff happened to her. And apparently it was a trauma response that kept her from being able to see what was happening to her. Essentially, it's like really traumatic and awful shit.
Yeah. They went into detail without going into detail.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into detail.
Yeah.
But thank God.
We'll leave it at human trafficking.
Yeah. So finally they get together with Lee, and they all get back together, and he's discussing a plan with Lee. So his plan was actually to murder somebody else and disfigure her body to make it think that they had killed Mahinori Makoto. Like, it's a pretty bad plan too, but I was like, I gotta do something, I guess. I'm trying to remember exactly how that goes down.
Majima's not having any of it. He's like, no, that's a stupid plan.
Yeah, he ends up taking the stuff that he was given with the photos and the fake dress so that they would put the body in and whatever. Just takes it to a park and just dumps it in the trash and walks away.
That's right.
As that chapter ends, before it fades to black, somebody reaches into the trash can and grabs that bag and pulls it out, and then it cuts, and that's the end of that chapter. And it's like, well, fudge! What's happening next?
Yeah, but the lucky thing is you're still in a Majima chapter, so you go immediately into it, and you find out that, like, apparently somebody else did this, like, killed this person, disfigured them, and all that stuff, and now it was put out there that Makoto was murdered instead of the person who actually was, because they had her in her outfit that she wore for the club. And you're like, who did this? Like, who pulled the trigger, filled out this plan for us while we couldn't do it? And so Majima actually gets a call, I think, that's like, hey, meet me at the Cabaret Grand. I'm already waiting for you. I'm the one that did this for you, or something like that.
Yeah, he is it before or after that you get the first meeting, or the first interaction with Sagawa, where Sagawa's like, I'm proud of you, but I'm curious as to why you disfigured her face so much so people wouldn't know who she is. He's very, like, suspicious of what happened.
Honestly, 7 and 8 was such a while ago for me now that I don't remember the exact order that things happened in.
Well, yeah, so that's one of them.
He accosts you right after this happens, actually, I think. Because, yeah, it also asks what that guy was here for.
Gotcha.
That's right. Because that both those scenes happen in the club. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where you're first introduced to
Nishitani.
Nishitani, yeah.
Not to be confused with Nishikiyama. Nishitani.
Yeah, I remember, like, making a mental note, like, okay, they're two different people. Don't let the nish in the beginning fuck you up. Nishitani. Yeah, and this motherfucker, he just likes to fight. Like, that's the vibe I got from him, is like, he was very much like, once you beat him up, he's like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, like,
he's a violence pervert.
Yeah, he basically comes to Nishiki's club, tells him he did it and everything, and not Nishiki's, to Majima's club, and tells him he did it and everything, and he's like, I'll tell you more, but you have to fight me for it. And he's like, then Majima's like, I don't fight a customer, because he apparently paid off the entire club to have it to himself. He's like, I can't fight a customer. He's like, oh, then I'm a thief. I'm here to steal from you. I'll even call the police right now. He picks up because he has a bag phone, picks up his bag phone, calls the police on himself, saying, there's a crazy thug in the Cabaret Grand, come get him. And so basically, then he's like, see, no longer a customer, I'm a thief, fight me. And that's when you end up fighting him. It's like, such a cool little scene right there. And so he attacks you with a dagger, so of course I'm going to fight him with my baseball bat.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great fight. That was like the only fight aside from the first Kuze fight that I actually died on, I think, in the entire game.
Yeah, I remember thinking that was a pretty hard fight. Like, that guy could definitely throw down.
You had to learn how to use the defensive options for Slugger, I think, to really do that fight well. Because you couldn't just step around him.
I had gotten pretty good at Slugger by then, because that was like the only fighting style I used with Majima. I just fucking loved it. There was something about just whipping dudes with the baseball bat that was just fucking satisfying.
I think one of the things that really attracted me to Slugger in the overworld especially was the fact that if you just had left over some heat gauge from the last fight, you could open up by completely crushing a dude. Like, and if it was a weak enough minion, Nate's mimicking the move to just hit him down on the shoulder one time and knocks him on the ground, kind of batter up, home run him in the head, and if they're a weak enough mook and it's the first time you've done that move, it should one-shot most of them.
Yeah.
Some of the most satisfying moments in that game were when I would have a confrontation start with just one person and I'd hit it with that heat move and win with that heat move, and it was like as soon as it began it ended, and it was just beautiful. Just like fuck with Majima, huh? Bap bap, that's what you get.
Yeah. And so like after that scene, like Majima like heads out because like obviously the club's running itself at this point. Majima's barely there now because he has all this other stuff to go. And so Majima realizes at that point that Saga was not going to buy the body double thing for too long. So he goes back to the warehouse and tells Lee and Makamura what happened at the Cabaret Grand and tell him we got to leave town immediately. So they come up with a plan to go back to the massage parlor because Lee has a van there waiting for him that they can get in and get out of town. So you have to sneak around the city to try to meet Lee at the parlor, and you get there, and so Lee starts walking around. Here, I'll go get the van started. You guys follow up behind me. As soon as he turns the key on that van, boom! Like the whole freaking block blows up, essentially. So like everybody's kind of like knocked to the ground. You know you're never going to see Lee again at that point, which...
Yeah. I hate to say that, like, I saw that coming.
I did.
And I don't
we
know
all
if again
did.
it's from watching Mafia stuff over the years.
The moment he gets in the car by himself, like, this doesn't end well.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, oh no, Lee, don't turn that key. Boom! Damn it, Lee.
Yeah.
I really liked you, man.
Yeah, I know. And then Majima and Makamura are both like knocked to the ground, like they're kind of beat up from that explosion, but they survive. And then you just see Sagawa walk up, and Sagawa's like, "Can't get out of town. I kind of knew this was going to happen." Then all of a sudden, you hear a gunshot, and Sagawa falls down. And this guy you've never seen before in this white suit comes up, and then he just like takes his butt of his pistol and knocks Majima out and takes Makimoto with him.
Now, this is referenced in the next beginning of Majima, which we'll get to. But at this time, I didn't even register that dude was in a white suit, right? So later on, when they're talking about the dude in the white suit, I'm like, did Kiryu show up? And I didn't realize it. I was like, what the fuck? So I had to go back and I think I was on YouTube or something and watched that chapter again. No, I'm sorry. That was when I had a game freak out and it crashed on me and I had to go back through and play that again. But I watched the thing again. I was like, oh, that guy is wearing a white suit. Okay, never mind.
And that's when the chapter cuts and you go into chapter 9, which means you're back with Kiryu.
And
I don't know how much longer we're going to kind of walk through chapter by chapter, but like this is where the game really picks up because you start to see where things start to come together a little bit.
Yeah, this is the chapter I believe where you figure out, is it Tachibana can't go away from Little China for very long because
he's on dialysis.
Dialysis, thank you. I was like something with his kidneys. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, he's on dialysis, and the thing that I remember most from chapter 9 is there was a detail about the human trafficking thing with Makoto about she remembered a guy with a bat tattoo on his arm. And at the end of chapter 9, when he's laying in bed after you've found him, and I can't remember what quite happened before then. I do believe you said at the beginning of chapter 9 is when you find your apartment on fire.
I think so, yeah.
So at the end of chapter 9, it's like panning around, showing Tachibana laying there getting dialysis, and it shows his fucking arm, and he's got a bat tattoo on it. And I remember messaging Nate and being like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
and yeah,
so good. And like Willie said, I don't know how much more I want to go like beat by beat, story beat. For like, I think we're covering it pretty intensely now. But long story short, game is really freaking good. Like, I couldn't get over it. Like, I didn't want to stop playing this at any point. Like, it was one of those games where I got to chapter 17 and I knew that all I had to do was activate the final sequence of the game and it'd be over. And I avoided that for a couple days because I was just like, this was a world that I wasn't ready to leave when it came time for that. So like, I kind of like dilly-dally, did all the secret side quests and stuff like that to keep myself moving and be able to spend more time in Kamurocho and have fun with the game before I had to, because I knew I was going to love the final battles too, but I was like, man.
Yeah, you had to make some serious money for the final battles.
So were there any other like story beats that really stuck with you guys other than the ones that we kind of went through?
I don't know if I would call it a story beat so much as a gameplay thing, but there are some really big battles at the end of certain chapters, and at one point you end up having to fight your way through the entire actual headquarters of the Tojo clan, where they're basically sending everyone after you. There's like 100 dudes you had to fight, but there's stuff everywhere too, so you're constantly finding ways to bash them with objects that are laying around, and it's just incredible. Like, the game turns into Dynasty Warriors.
Oh, that scene with Yu, Oda, and Tachibana?
Yeah,
with the waves
and
of dudes
Tachibana running through the quarters. That was really fun.
The story beat that came out to me was what eventually ties together the two stories, which is that Makoto, this girl that Majima is told to kill, is the owner of the empty lot that the whole game is focused around, and she ends up being shot at the end, but she didn't die. And help me out, who was the very suave looking, like Doctor Strange looking motherfucker, the Yakuza guy? He ends up walking with a cane.
Saga.
Shit.
Hold on, I'll get you. Hold on.
Okay, thank you. He was the head of the
Sarah.
Oh, him. The guy who eventually ends up becoming like head macho man.
Head macho man.
Yeah.
That's his official title. It's on his business card.
He was a really cool character. I ended up liking him a lot because he was very straight up. Saga ends up shooting him, but he ends up surviving. The girl ends up getting shot. She ends up surviving.
These guys are really bad with guns.
Yeah, pretty much. The ending is more what I wanted to talk about. There was a scene at the end that really made me tear up.
Yeah.
I'm the only one, but that's okay.
That is okay. Before we do that, though, like, I want to say something
please.
Real quick. In the first episode, we were talking about the differences between all the lieutenants. Like, we kind of said Lieutenant Kuze was the hothead, fiery one that fought everybody, and that Owano was the flashy one, and then that give me a second.
Shibusawa.
Yeah, Shibusawa was the kind of like the smart one, the brain, the one that looked kind of like an accountant. And I told you guys, remember what I said? I said, Shibusawa is definitely the one that's going to be the super scary one.
Yeah.
Who was right?
That's no joke. He ended up being the most hard ass of the three for sure.
Yeah. Because like,
cold blooded.
If you look at it, I guess you could say there's two final bosses in the game, one for Majima and one for Kiryu. And Shibusawa is one of the final bosses, and I was like, I knew it.
Yeah. And we got to touch on Owano going out like a hoss.
Yeah.
Like
so Owano gained a lot of respect at the end of the game, for sure.
Yeah, there's this battle where you finally do have to fight Owano as Majima, and you go in there and you duke it out. Well,
the first part about it is like Owano like confronts him, because this is in the last battle too. Owano confronts him, and is like, and Majima's kind of like, just a flashy guy like you. You're a nobody to me. Like, all you care about is the money and the drugs and the women. What do you care about the people and all that? It's like, and then Owano's like, you know what? You're kind of right. I got into the Yakuza because there was something that I liked, and that was smashing faces in. And it's sad that I kind of lost that along the way. But you know what? I'll give it to you now. Let's fight. And then that's why they end up fighting. It's a great fight, too.
Everyone in this game is really good at grabbing their shirt by the shoulder and ripping off their entire suit.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to mention that. Yeah, they'll be wearing an entire full jacket top with a shirt that's only got two unbuttoned. They grab their shoulder, pull, and all of a sudden they're completely topless. Yeah. Just like rocking, showing off their cool ass Yakuza back piece.
Yeah.
And everyone in the game has like a signature back piece. It's so awesome.
One thing that I thought was really interesting in this game is that Kiryu's isn't colored in.
Yeah, I feel like the ranking guys were all colored in, but like Kiryu's is not. So I didn't know if that's like a Yakuza tradition, like you kind of, as you make your bones, you get the right to color yours in, or what?
Because there was a part of the game later too where Nishiki was also fighting with you, and you both like to pull ball. You do a simultaneous grab your shirt by the shoulder and throw it off, and neither one of theirs were colored, if I remember correctly, because they were both kind of young, low-ranking fellas.
Yeah, but fun fact, in premium adventure mode, if you do the shirtless mode with Kiryu, his tattoo has color in it.
Yeah, I did notice that as well.
So I think that's a foreshadow to like maybe the old later games. He has his tattoo filled in for whatever reason. Maybe with the billions of yen he made from real estate, which we'll touch on here in a minute.
Yeah, so like, and then after you fight Awano, go ahead and say what happens at the end of Wano scene, Dalton.
Yeah. So there's a Chinese hitman that was hired to, and he's the one who ends up killing Tachibana early on. And he comes in and he aims his gun and he's going to go shoot Majima, but Majima has earned Owano's utmost respect somehow, and Owano just stands in front of Majima and takes the bullet and then starts like talking shit to the hitman. The hitman puts like 3 or 4 more bullets into Owano, and Owano's still standing there walking towards him like, I'm gonna fuck you up. And then the assassin dude like has these, I don't know if they were like big nail looking things, almost like hammer and nails type things, but like big spikes between his fingers. And like Voldo, like we talked about earlier from Soul Calibur, he just jams those fuckers straight through Owano's chest.
Yeah.
And then pulls him out, and Owano assumingly drops dead.
Yeah.
And then he throws those at Majima, and
because like Awano was the one lieutenant we kind of dissed on a little bit for just being this big flashy guy that only cared about the finer things, and he went out like an absolute stallion in the end.
Yeah,
I gotta say, by the end, I was really respecting the hell out of Kuze too, because I mean, he knew his place, but he definitely came there like, "Hey, I'm just mono on mono. Let's do this. I didn't send the whole family to burn down Kazumagun's headquarters. I'm just here. And if you can beat me, you guys can walk away."
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I feel like that's kind of probably how Owano started out, too. As Owano was one of those guys that was a lot like Kuze, and then he just kind of went his own way because the fighting kind of got boring and tired for him, so he decided to try to waste his time on the expensive things in life that he can now afford.
Yeah. So after that, like, and then that fight with that guy, and then you go through the final battles where you fight Shibusawa, which was a hard-ass fight, and long. It was a long fight.
Shibusawa was such a good final boss fight, dude.
It was.
Yeah, it has these phases, and he like the characters in the game all have like the bosses have multiple health bars. Sometimes like there's a yellow health or the orange health and the yellow health. Some of them have green. Like the first time Kuze had green health, I'm like, oh shit. Then they get to like sky blue after that, and he's the only guy that has a purple health bar on top of that one.
Yeah, he had a bunch of fucking health, dude. So you had to waylay him a lot. Once you beat him, go ahead. Do you have some?
I was just there's a lot of props laying around though, which definitely helps the fight gain a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, that one specific area we were in, like the bar, where there's just tables and chairs and ladders, oh my.
The cool thing about the fight is, like, you start punching and wail on each other. You wail on each other so hard that you fall from one deck of the boat to the next deck of the boat, and, like, you end up punching each other through rooms, stuff like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then at the end, he basically, like, Kiryu's on top of him, just punching the shit out of his face. And he basically tells Kiryu to kill him. And Kiryu pulls up that fist, and he's like, I'm going to kill you, motherfucker. And then here comes Nishiki. And Nishiki tackles him. And he's like, no, I can't let you do this. If we ever cross that road, we're going to cross it together. But not today is not the day.
Yeah.
That's just a summary. It was way more intense and like emotional than that.
We only give a little summary because I'm going to 100 and go ahead and say this right now. Play this game the whole way through. It is 100% worth your time. I'm not going to spoil what rating I'm giving it, but this game is very, very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. The two post-credit scenes that I'm going to bring up that really stuck out to me. One was the interaction between Majima and Sagawa, where Sagawa finally like respected Majima, and Majima's like, yeah, we're cool, dude, but I don't ever want to see your fucking face again if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And Saga was like, I respect that. I'll see you down the road, Majima. And he wanders. Oh, and then he's like, by the way, really? That jacket? Because Majima at this time's like wearing a gold ass jacket it's open with his chest out. And he's like,
got the bowl cut he'll have in future games and stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, I like it. I'm going to do me now. I don't give a fuck. I'm not trying to make anybody else happy.
Yeah, because one of the things that stuck out to me about that as well was Mod was like, I've seen a lot of idiots through my time. And it shows, like, Lee getting blown up in the van, and it shows Nishtani getting shot in the prison, which we didn't talk about, but Nishtani gets shot in prison, all stuff. And you know what? Those are some of the best idiots I've ever met. I think it's a good thing to be a little bit more of an idiot in life. I don't know if idiot was the word, but something similar to that.
He said they were idiots, but they were some of the finest bastards I've ever known, or something like that.
And he's like, I can stand to be a little bit more that way.
So he goes walking around the corner, and Saga was sitting there, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, he's finally grown up, he's finally a Yakuza, like he's real proud of Majima. And then just a hand gets on Sagawa's shoulder, and Sagawa goes, damn, y'all are quick. And he turns around, and I don't remember what he says, like one last thing where he's like, go ahead, I know what you're here for. And they cuts to black, and you hear a gunshot. Boom. So Sagawa got taken out for being part of the shindig. But it was the other scene. So at this point, Makoto has recovered from being shot. She can see again. And she's like getting harassed by these two guys. And Majima sees this and comes walking up. Well, it turns out these two dudes are underneath Majima in the Yakuza, because now Majima's back as a Yakuza member. And this doctor, like, I guess one of her friends runs and gets the doctor to come help, and the doctor's like, hey, leave him alone and everything. But these dudes are like talking shit, and Majima knocks both his homeboys out. And she's just looking, and she's looking at Majima, and Majima, I had not seen that serious of a look on his face throughout the whole game. Like, I don't know, is the way he was looking at her. And he ends up pulling the doctor guy aside, and he's like, do you love her? The doctor's like, what? What do you mean? He's like, answer me. He's like, do you love her? And they have an interaction. I won't go into the whole thing, but basically Majima ends up walking off. And what's the sad thing is Makoto never got to see Majima's face. She only got to see a blurry outline when she kind of got her vision back of Majima. So she had no idea who that was, and he did not speak within her earshot. And he basically just told that dude to take care of her, go tell her you love her, and he walks off.
Here's the thing. I think she would have recognized him. I think it's kind of BS, because she knew he only had one eye because of the conversations they had together, and she knew his voice.
I thought that too, yeah.
How many guys with one eye do you see walking around?
I don't know. I don't live in Japan. I can't comment on how many one-eyed men are walking around over there. But there's a scene where she goes back to take flowers to where Tachibana was killed, which is the empty lot. And she puts the flowers down, and you start hearing this song play, and she starts freaking out and looking around, and there's this loose spot of dirt. She starts digging in the dirt and finds this wrapped up cloth, and she opens it up, and it's that watch that Majima had taken. And it's fixed, and it plays the song again. She holds it close to her. She starts crying, and then it like does that thing where it fades in a picture and then fades out what you're looking at, and it fades to Majima just walking. And I was like teared up. I'm like, oh man, that's so nice. In the end, like, he loved that girl, man. Like, he went and he got her watch fixed, and he left her to have a good time. So in this same exact scene that I'm processing these emotions, it shows Majima walking, and then it shows Kiryu walking, and then it shows those two just like walking up and looking at one another from about, I don't know, like 10 feet away from one another. And they're just standing there, and it does like a close-up of Majima's face, and a close-up of Kiryu's face, and then a close-up of Majima's face, and Majima's expression just changes to, I assume, the Majima that everyone knows from the rest of the Yakuza games, and he's like, Kiryu-chan! Or Kun, or whatever. Boom, cut to black, credits roll.
Yeah.
Like, so good. It was so good. And I think those were post-credits.
Yeah, I think that was a post-credit scene too. But the one thing I thought was really interesting is you played as both these characters through the entire game. They didn't meet a single time through the series of crazy events that intertwined and weaved with each other. They didn't meet a single time. Like, the closest thing you had happen was there was a scene where you're playing as Majima and you were in Kamurocho and you run into Nishikiyama. Sorry.
No, he did it both ways.
No, so sad.
Nishiki.
But speaking of that was such a scene that kind of tore me a little bit, because like there was a scene where like you are Majima looking for Kiryu essentially, and you run into Nishikiyama, and you're trying to get the information, you end up having to fight Nishikiyama as Majima. And I was like, I don't want to punch my best friend.
Yeah, I was all right with it only because I knew he wasn't going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't his MO. But still, it didn't feel good to beat up on your homeboy at all. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the story aspect. Is there any closing thoughts before we get into the two other things that we have to cover?
I think that covers it for me. I want to reiterate, we did not cover the story 100%, and there's a lot more that we did not talk about that is 1,000% worth you playing the game to see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well then, gentlemen, let's talk about some cabaret club and real estate. The real Yakuza 0 gameplay. So as Kiryu with Tachibana Real Estate, you actually become a real estate broker in a way, and you go around and try to acquire different properties, and then you do collections like the mafia, or you protect them and they do collections, they make money for you, and you try to compete with the
5 billionaires.
The 5 billionaires, okay, that's right.
Yeah. And they all had King in their name. Like you had the Electronics King, you had the Pleasure King, the Media King. There's 2 more, but you get the idea.
The Leisure King and the Gambling King.
I think, was it Pleasure King? So when I first saw the Pleasure King, I was like, oh, okay, it's like a China type chick. Just big, buff, gonna kick your ass type girl. No, I was wrong. I think that was actually just a dude cross-dressing. But either way, like I was super pumped for like, oh, hell yeah, dude, big, buff chick. Like, that's cool. Empowerment type thing. And then I was like, oh, it's a cross-dresser. Oh, yeah, this is a Japanese game. All right, never mind. But still, which did you prefer? The real estate or the cabaret club?
So when I first got into both of them, I found real estate a lot easier to understand and get started with. So like I spent a lot of time doing real estate, and that's the first one that I ended up completing. So like, but in the long run, I think I ended up liking the cabaret club more because it was a lot more interactive and gave you a lot more agency of what was happening. So I think, in my opinion, that one was the more fun one.
Yeah, the Cabaret Club was a lot more based on active gameplay, whereas the real estate game is basically about investment. You buy new properties or you invest in your existing properties. You kind of wait for the time of collection to happen, and then you repeat the cycle. Whereas the Cabaret Club is more of a RPG type thing. The hostesses for each of your clubs have levels and you need stats, and you need to manage them appropriately and pick which ones you're going to use on certain nights and all that. And it's more micromanaging, whereas the real estate one is almost set it and forget it and just keep pumping more money in. It'll pump more back out at you.
Yeah, I will say I played so much of the Cabaret Club one night that night in my sleep, in my dream, I was in a bar and nothing to do with Yakuza. But all of a sudden, the bartender was Majima, and he popped a champagne bottle, and it was Sunshine Fever time, and all drinks were half off. And the song started playing. The Sunshine Fever song started playing in the bar, and I was like, in my dream, I remember being like, damn, I've been playing too much fucking Yakuza.
Dude, I love that Sunshine Fever song that played, though. And then I noticed that if you went into, like, the disco, that would be playing in the background before you started doing the dance in there. So I was like, this is awesome.
Oh, my... Bro... Speaking of the disco, so if you finish the disco storyline with Majima, you get a gold hostess for one of your clubs, right? That quest took me so fucking long to beat because I am awful at the disco in this game.
I did not get that hostess.
I didn't even start. I didn't know Majima had a separate disco quest line. I'd started curious, but I never did a contest as Majima.
Yeah, you go in there.
Except on the dates for the club, the practice dates. But I never did, like, no one ever approached me in the club and was like, hey, you want to battle?
Yeah, you go in there and you dance one time and then you come out, and the next time you go in, there's like some famous dancer chick.
Oh, okay.
Who starts
I only
talking
went
to
in by myself one time, so I never triggered the second
coming. If you'd have went in there, Christ would have shown up. It would have been fun.
Oh, nice.
The second coming of Christ. Yeah, you know. Yeah. The what was the Obitarian?
Yes.
Was that her name? Oh my god.
Yeah, that was what they called her, yeah.
Talk about a very strange looking old lady that came in clutch.
She was like one of the best hostesses in gold class before you started getting more platinum. It was like, it was crazy how actually good she was, from like how you ended up getting her and like the story behind her and everything.
There were so many times I had mega rich dudes come in and she would give them a purple happy face. And I was like, fuck yeah, here you go. Have the old lady, give her tons of money.
I think my favorite part about her was 2 of her stats were X, and then her, I think funny was double circle, but sexy was the medium one too, so she could still kind of get it.
Yeah. Like, if you saw her in a GILF porn, you might click it. Depending on the mood. Go into the video store or whatever, like the erotic video store, and the guy, oh my god, by the way, did y'all do the sub quest for the erotic video store guy?
No.
I did not. I saw that there was one there, but I'm like, dude, I don't want to keep going in here and running videos over and over again.
Yeah, you had to do that to raise the friendship, right? I would just go in there, play the video, skip it, come out, run back in, and I just kept doing that over and over, right? But you build it up eventually, and he is like, working in this place, I'm so desynthesized, like, I'm afraid that my thing's not going to work anymore if I try to have sex. Like, none of this turns me on anymore, but I heard there's this videotape. He's like, there's this videotape. It's secret. You go to this area and you find a woman. She's dressed in all white and she tells you that she's cold. And if you give her something, like if you're nice to her, she gives you the tape. And Kiryu's like, okay, if I see this chick, I'll let you know.
I heard there was a secret porn. Jesus, please, the Lord.
So, as you're wandering around, you end up in this back alley, and you see there's a chick just standing there in like a white dress, and she's like, "I'm cold." So you're like, I'm thinking, I went and I bought a jacket for her, right, from the
that's thoughtful,
the import store. Go back to her, and I click on her, and she's like, "I'm cold," and then he's like, "Oh, I know to warm you up, takoyaki." So I was like, all right.
Machima has one solution to most of his problems.
There goes 800 grand for nothing. So I went and I got a thing of takoyaki and I brought it back to her and I gave it to her and she just hands you this tape and Kiryu is like, oh, this tape's blank and everything. Oh, you must be and he turns to go like say something to her and she's gone. So he's like, okay. So you take the tape back to homeboy who works at the video store and he is so excited. Like he is so beyond excited that he wants to watch it with you. And Kiryu's like, I don't think we should watch this together. Like, what are you talking? He's like, no, man, you did all the work. No, we're gonna watch it together. So you go into the video room, and he puts in the tape, and it plays like this little like 3 or 4 second thing, and then just turns off. Like there's nothing. And the guy's like, oh, what a bummer, man. This sucks. And Kiryu's like, what are you talking about? You were so excited about the thought of this video. You know what I'm saying? And like, he's like, you didn't need the actual video, dude. He's like, you could probably, he didn't say this, but I'll say you could probably jizz a bucket right now from how excited you were about what was going to be on this video and not actually what was on it. And the guy's like, man, you're right. So they both leave the room and then it cuts back to the room, or it shows the television screen again. And then it cuts back to where they just were. And the girl who gave you the video standing there all creepy like, and I was like, oh, it's like The Ring.
That's awesome.
And that's the end of the quest. Like, that's the whole stuff.
That's actually really never funny. I like that. I didn't play that one. I like that one.
It was great, dude. I was just like, because the whole time I'm thinking, what's going to be on this fucking tape?
Yeah.
And nothing. It was brilliant. You ended up getting him for I don't remember if he was he wasn't an investor. I think maybe he was one of your managers.
You could partner with the club and get some extra fans. Because it was Majima's.
Oh, that was Majima. That was right. That's right. It was Majima. Yeah, you got him for the fans for that area. You are correct, sir. There was one I couldn't figure out how to get it, and I don't remember if it was for Kiryu or if it was for Majima, but it was one of the Sega buildings. Because I know I had to beat the chick and unlock Super Hold On, and then I unlocked that, I believe, for Kiryu, but I think it was Majima had one that you had to go in and get a Sega. And I couldn't figure out how to do it.
I'm pretty sure you had to play Space Harrier, right?
Yeah, Space Harrier. It's triggered the same way. You talk to her first, and she says she's playing video games, and then you play Space Harrier, and she'll just come up to you and be like, "Hey, that's a really good score. I'm working on my high score," and you leave and you come back or whatever. And it basically works the same way as the Outrun one, except when you win this, instead you get Fantasy Zone.
Oh, okay.
can invest in the club.
Okay, I got you. Oh, Fantasy Zone. Nice.
I don't understand fantasies. I played it like 7 times trying to figure out how to get good at it, and I figured eventually it's like, it's not like most shmups. You actually want to give the enemies a wide berth instead of trying to weave through everything. But like, I still never got any good at it.
I just like the look of the character. The little thing you play as is cute.
It's got a great like art design, like this pastel color palette too. It's really neat looking. I'm just not good at it. I think it's probably a good game. I'm bad.
Word up. Yeah.
One of my favorite of those like random quests, I think I was the only one to get to, was if you go to the phone booth, the southernmost taxi point in Sotenbori, there's a phone booth, and if you go talk to it, instead of having a save, it rings. And you pick it up, and there's a guy on the line, and he starts like talking to you. He's like, "Hey, do you want to play a game?" Kind of being a little creepy about it, but he's also like, he says stuff that you're doing, and so it's like he's kind of got eyes on you and stuff. And at first, I thought it was about to be like phone booth or whatever. Yeah. It's like a sniper rifle trained on you. But it gets weirder. He's like, "I need you to bring me something," and he asks you for something really simple the first time, like go bring me like a.
It was a pistol.
Oh, it was like a. Oh, was it a pistol the first time?
Yeah. Because I never finished that quest, but I did start it, and
okay.
Yeah, he convinces you he's being serious because you open the phone book to the page he tells you, and there's like 1,000,000 yen or something yen, like that. Yeah, and
it wasn't very much, but it was enough to be serious in the real world. You know,
he's like, "Bring me a handgun." He's like, "What the fuck? What do you want me to bring you a handgun for?" Don't worry about that. Just bring me a handgun.
So the whole thing basically is really intended as a kind of a jump tutorial for the equipment search on the Dragon and Tiger. So because he asks you to get a handgun, they ask you to get tourmaline, which is a crafting resource that you can only get in certain areas. Then he asks you to get a Chinese broadsword, which is another rare equipment. And there's like another one, and then eventually you run through all of it, and he asks you to go. There's like a deal going. He calls like asking for help. He says, "There's a deal going bad. I need you to meet me on the south side of the Sotenbury Bridge or the Sotenbury footpath or whatever." And you get there, and there's 3 guys there, and they're like, talking like, "Oh, we're gonna get that fucking guy or whatever." The guy on the phone, by the way, he identifies himself as Simon, which even your guy was Majin was like, "That's obviously a fake name." It's like, Simon Says, I guess was the idea. But so you get there, and the guys are just like mumbling. He's like. Majin was just like, "Okay, which one are you, Simon?" And like, Simon, that traitor, he's got it, you have to die. And you have no idea what's going on still, but then like, they fight you, you beat them up, and you go back to the phone booth, and the guy's just like, Majin was like, "Okay, quit playing games with me, I just went there, you weren't there were a bunch of guys, they tried to jump me," and he's like, "Look, I used to be part of this dangerous organization. There was a deal that was going to go down there that would have destroyed this city. You have saved the city. I will give you a gift. Just hang out there." And then, like, a lady comes strolling up, like, "Simon sent me. Please take me into your club. Don't, or he will kill me." And so her name is unknown, and she's like one of the best gold hosts. Also.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely did not get that hostess. That's pretty cool.
No, yeah, dude. So did you guys, quick side note, did you guys know, and this could have just been something that I figured out, and I'm an idiot because it told me and I didn't realize it, that you could hit down on the D-pad and you would pull out whatever weapon that you had equipped?
Yeah.
I did not realize that until like the very last chapter when I bought a bunch of weapons. I'm like, I don't understand why the weapons aren't affecting my stats, because I figured it was just equipped to change your stats or whatever. And then I went into the menu. I'm like, is there a button for weapon? Because why am I carrying around a gun that I'm not using? It turns out, down in the stances is weapons.
Yeah, and it's really good because if you're in Slugger stance with Majima and you switch to that weapon, like it will pull that weapon out and you're using that in Slugger stance. So like that's how you get.
Yeah, that's what
it's like when you got all your training with the guy that ran the Dragon and Tiger. That's how you got to use all those different like moves that you learn from him, because he teaches you moves with tonfa sticks and long poles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I figured he was doing that. I just couldn't figure out how to get that stuff going in Slugger Stance, but I knew there had to be some kind of connection. It just took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out how to actually trigger that.
The only issue I had was the weapon durability kind of sucked. So, like, you could get to the point where if you had, like, a couple heat bars, like if you used a weapon but you had weapon durability, it wouldn't affect it. But then you couldn't really use heat actions because then your heat would go down. So like I never got too into using weapons because I just didn't like the fact that they broke a lot, and it wasn't as simple as, say, like getting it repaired because like they would break after like 12 hits, and I was like, man, this kind of sucks because I'm hitting this one guy 45 times to kill him.
Yeah.
I did.
Plus, Slugger's like an unstoppable, always on weapon mode, so it's like, why would you want to get rid of it, especially when it has so many cool flourishes?
Yeah.
I did find it funny that there were guns that you could use because I did shoot a couple people.
I did too.
And it didn't do as much damage as I thought it should compared to what damage does to me when I get shot in that game.
Yeah.
But it was satisfying to like shoot a dude and he'd just and fall down to the ground. You'd be like, all right, you're done for a second. Let me move on to your buddy.
And you could pistol whip people.
Yeah.
When you got the boat in the finale, man, like every time someone shot me, I made a point like, oh, I'm going to take your gun and I'm going to use it on your buddies, and it's your fault.
Oh,
you did this!
So, gentlemen, would you like to get into some of the questions from our listeners?
Let's go to the mailbag. Let's go to the mailbag. Let's go to the mailbag, because it's really fun. We're never doing that again.
That's cool that you did a song for Blue's Clues that wasn't the mail song to get to our mail segment.
Damn it. I'm quitting. I'm off the show.
You're fired. You're off the force. You're a loose cannon.
So, the first question from Adam. Sorry if I missed this last week, but what is your favorite Yakuza-like game? For me, it's True Crime Streets of LA or Sleeping Dogs.
So for me, I'll go ahead and say that this is kind of a unique experience for me because I don't feel like I've played a game like Yakuza 0 before. The closest thing, like I think we were talking about in the Patreon last week, where we were talking about like our favorite beat 'em ups. So the closest thing that I can compare it to is like a Warriors type game, which this is not. So I don't really have much to compare it to that way. I guess I can compare it to like a 2D beat 'em up, and I guess I'd say Streets of Rage 2.
I guess I'll take this in a different direction. I would say that because of the open worldness and the amount of time I spent screwing around compared to the story, the only difference is I actually played the story in this game. But I would compare it to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas in terms of just running around in a big, weird city doing random stuff that doesn't really need to be done just because I enjoy it.
That's fair. I'll change my answer to Vice City then.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto 3. What is
We'll just complete the trilogy. Let's get definitive.
Oh, Jesus. I have to agree. Sleeping Dogs is really good. I never beat it, but it's basically Yakuza in Hong Kong, and it's a little more serious.
I have that on Steam. I'd like to get into that one day.
Yeah, that's another one that I think would be really fun for us to cover. And then, like I was talking about, like you said in the Patreon last week. And Adam, you're a patron. What are you doing? I'm just kidding. I really enjoyed like the adventure modes and like some of the Tekken games and Toe Ball #1, those style. Like those were fun as well. And then we have two questions from Paul Korn, who was our guest last week. He could not make it this week because they moved into a new home and all that. So congratulations on that, by the way, Paul. What are your predictions for where the characters will be in the main timeline of the series?
Okay. So at the end of the game, it actually does do a "Where are they now?" kind of segment. I think you have a few of those pulled up, Dalton.
I do, my good sir. I do. Let me scroll up to find where they start.
Now, the Where Are They Now segment is a little bit vague with a lot of it. Like, it gives years and says something like, things took a dark turn, and then waves were made, or something like that. It doesn't explicitly say what happens, but I think just because a couple years and a couple dates kept coming up over and over again, I have a pretty good idea that there's some definite things that went down and who were the major players.
Yeah, things definitely seem to get wild around 2005, I think it was the year.
And it was 1995 something happens, and 2005 something happens.
Yeah, like for example, Kiryu's says Kazuma Kiryu rises to lieutenant advisor of the Dojima family, known and feared as the Dragon of Dojima. In December of 1995, an incident that will change his life forever occurs, and Kiryu serves 10 years in prison. In one massive struggle after another, Kazuma Kiryu is drawn back into the raging conflicts of the Yakuza. His current whereabouts are unknown.
So if you're asking us what happens between Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 1, because I'm thinking that must be the beginning of Yakuza 1, since my guess is that game came out in around 2005, because it would have been after the Shenmue games, so that seems about right, since it's Dreamcast games.
Fair.
Yep.
So, I mean, I have my guess. Nate, do you have one you want to go with first? Because I have a feeling I might be bang on with mine.
I don't really. Like, I know he's because I know one thing Paul mentioned was that the funny thing about Kiryu is he's always kind of like out of the Yakuza. So like the big thing they were excited to play Yakuza 0 is because you got to be Kiryu in the Yakuza. Then he was out of the Yakuza in like 10 minutes in this game too. So I'm feeling that he kind of gets disavowed from the Yakuza for being in prison for 10 years. And then he ends up doing something fighting the Yakuza when he gets... I don't have any good answer for this.
So I think... Sarah is now in charge at the end of the game.
Yeah.
He's now in charge of the family.
Yes.
I think big Dwayne The Rock Johnson looking motherfucker that was
Shimano?
Majima's boss at Shimano. I think he's going to cause some fuck shit, and he's probably going to be one of the main antagonists of the later games.
Yeah, his character design really looks like it comes from the mid-2000s to me. Like, he looks like a Sega character from like 2 decades ago, so I figure he has to be the main antagonist of either the next game, probably, or at least like the guy that's pulling the strings behind whoever the main antagonist is going to be. So I'm guessing Majima is going to be a main opponent, but I also get the idea that Majima is not really like the main villain so much as like the other guy's counterpart to Kiryu. You know what I mean? Like he's also kind of the loose cannon that gets things done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm going to say, I think that this game feels like it is setting up, we have so much backstory, because one of the games in the future must have, they had a lot of history and then everything went wrong. I'm thinking we have to fight Nishikiyama. I can't even say his name right. I'm thinking he's going to be like our main adversary coming up soon.
Nishiki.
I don't see any way we get out of this without fighting him. I think maybe when we're in jail, something goes bad, and he said we were in jail for like 10 years, right? There's no way he's coming to visit every day. He has his own life to deal with and stuff. And I don't know, 10 years without your bro, that's going to be
I think
rough.
even in the Where Are They Now section, it does mention that Nishiki goes astray and kind of follows that path into trying to rise the rank in the Yakuza instead of caring as much about the people.
Yeah.
I hope he's redeemable. I hope we don't just end up killing him at the end of the first game.
I really hate the idea of him dying, but
yeah, like I've grown really attached to him. And like when you get the moment that Kiryu looks back at him and calls him Kyodai again for the first time since he disavowed him at the end of chapter 6 or whatever. Like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do like a dramatic read of all the post-credit things at the end of the episode, and that'd be like the ending of the episode, right? But I do want to say you're absolutely right, because it says sworn brothers since their days at the Sunflower Orphanage. Nishiki stays Kiryu's confidant, but 1995 is a dark year. In the events that follow, while Kiryu serves time in jail, Nishikiyama becomes a changed man. His ambition to climb the ranks of the Tojo clan steers his fate.
Okay, so I'm guessing that basically it literally spelled this out for us then, and I'm not so much... I'm more barely connecting... I'm connecting the dots between number 1 and number 2 and forming a line. It's not a drawing of a lion or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I mean...
It's the easiest connected dots puzzle.
But I'm with you. I hope Nishiki ends up being redeemable, because he's such a good character in this game.
Yeah.
So there are 2 people that I'm very curious about as the future in this that were introduced, and one of them is Dojima.
He was the little brat that you met up with at the batting cage, right?
Yeah, with Kiryu. And you kind of like go through and end up teaching him a lesson in humility almost, where it was like, because that kid was like, he didn't like getting bullied, but then he always threw his dad's name around like he was like this big hoss, and it's like, well, that's why people are going to try to beat you up, because you're promoting this self-image that obviously isn't you. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, Kiryu's like, I wonder what's going to happen to that kid. I can't wait to see him grow up. And being that this is the prequel that came out after the other games, I assume that that's foreshadowing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on.
And then also a quest that I did that neither of you got around to was the Fortune Teller quest, which I do have some of that pulled up as well. Excuse me, if you'll excuse me for 1 second. Okay. You tell her, like, you go through, you're talking to this fortune teller as Kiryu, and she's like, refute it all you want, but I know what I saw. You were a splendid driver. She says, in the future, I saw you wearing a low hat, and you were driving a car with a lighted display that says occupied on it. And Kiryu's like, are you serious? I'm going to be a taxi driver. and she's like, bingo, a taxi driver you are. And then she goes like, I'm not going to go into all of it, but it's all she's bringing up is apparently things that happen in other Yakuza games, that this is all foreshadowing too.
That's a cool
Nice.
reference point. I like that.
And Willie, one that made me think of you, she says, when it comes to you and your family, the picture is complicated. I see you wrestling a viper in Okinawa. And it made me think, oh, didn't Willie say there's like one of the Yakuza games has a bunch of New Japan Pro wrestlers in it? I was like, I bet that's what that's talking about.
That's right. Part 6 does have a bunch of guys from New Japan. But
yeah, so
it's one of the one things I actually know about one of the future games is there's a ton of cameos from real pro wrestlers in Part 6. Although they might have been fictional characters in the game. I don't know if they're themselves or if they're... I just know they were voicing characters in there.
Oh, god damn it, I didn't grab the screen cap of the section I wanted to. Okay, well, you eventually, she tells you that your fate's going to intertwine with someone that you will meet today. And you end up meeting this kid that you had met previously in a quest with Majima over in Sotenbari, up in Okinawa. Is that where he was at? No. Osaka. And that kid ends up walking in like right by Kiryu and the fortune teller down in Tokyo in I almost said Shinjuku, but that's not
Kamurocho.
That's not it. Kamurocho, thank you. Like I was trying to think of the real life name of that place, and I'm like, oh no, what was the in-game name? So anyway, he passes by him there, and Kiryu looks at this kid and he's like, him? I wonder if that's who she's talking about. I don't really take that shit seriously anyway. And I think that's more foreshadowing because you find out that he's the kid of one of the Tojo clan guys from when you're playing with Majima, and worlds are colliding all over the place. These webs being typed, and I'm just like, man, it hooked me. I'm like, I'm fucking in on this series, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, my predictions overall and characters, I'm more curious to see what happens with Majima than anything, I think. Like, I will say one thing that I noticed about this game in looking up other, like without going into spoilers for them, or I didn't go into spoilers for them, but like looking up other games, like how they rank, which we'll get to in a second. I like that Kiryu ages. Like, you know, like some animes or some TV shows and stuff, the characters don't age for 20 years. But as these games progress, you can see it in Kiryu's face that he's getting older. And I really think that that's a nice little touch that you grow with him. You watch the story unfold as it happens type thing. It's very cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Another question from Paul. What is another very culturally specific city/district you would like to see explored in a video game like Yakuza?
So I think Yakuza 0 specifically is very much a period type piece where it takes place in a certain period in that area of Japan. Another thing I think would be really interesting, this is going a little bit further back in history though, what would be around the French Revolution, around the Bastille, back in those time frames, just kind of have a game taking place where you're kind of part of that revolution and everything going on at that time period. It sounds like something Assassin's Creed might have done at some point, but...
I was literally going to say that sounds like some Assassin's Creed shit. I've never played the series, but it sounds like something they would absolutely hop on.
I will say that Notre Dame, that's in France, right? Yeah. Okay, so...
if you mean the Notre Dame Cathedral, not the University of Notre Dame.
No, yes. The Cathedral of Notre Dame. Or Notre Dame.
Victor Hugo wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame, so...
There's absolutely an Assassin's Creed game that takes place in France. I don't know if it's the French Revolution, but that's... Yeah.
I haven't played Assassin's Creed. It seems like a series I want to check out at some point, though, so maybe future show pick.
Yeah, they're cool, man. The ones that I've played are fun.
I'll wait till Adam, with his Revival Extinctions, finishes up the series and tells me which one's the best.
Hell yeah. I don't know, like, this is going to sound really strange, but like one of my favorite Tony Hawk levels back in the day was the Red Square in Russia. So like, I don't know, a game based around there would be cool, like exploring that.
Yeah, I think Russia in general would be a pretty neat place to have a game setting in, because like as Westerners, we don't get a lot of their kind of point of view on things. And I think it might be hard for a video game producer to give us too, though, because we don't have a lot of cultural references because they're so isolated. But I don't know, that would be pretty neat. I like that idea. Especially
like a Soviet time when like during like I don't know, maybe during the reign of Stalin or something would be really cool.
Yeah.
I think my pick would be the Kowloon Walled City.
Oh,
because it was like this.
Yeah, actually, I do.
About. It was like this entire enclosed city that was just basically one big building. There was a bunch of smaller buildings built in all nooks and crannies. It was like it was mostly this terrible multi-stacked up slum and stuff, but like it was fast. It had its own culture and way of life and stuff that was super fascinating.
Well, they built that up because they were being so oppressed, right? And they kind of like independently built this and came into their own kind of own government and everything. Like this was somewhere, was this China that this took place at?
It was somewhere in China, yeah. It was. I want to say it was. I'll look at the exact answer instead of guessing.
China.
Let's see.
While you're looking that up,
it was in Hong Kong
okay.
actually.
I thought Kowloon was its own place. Oh, I guess.
Yeah, it was a densely populated Daejer Chinese enclave within British Hong Kong.
Oh. China. I completely agree. I've always really liked Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of like a fictionalized version of Chinese history, but still like the Warriors games and stuff, that's what those are all based on, is Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And I love that shit. And this new game coming out, this Wolong Fallen Dynasty or whatever, that's like going to be like an action RPG based in that world. Sign me the fuck up, bro. Nice. I love Chinese aesthetic, like Chinese art, and just that old, the way the buildings look and all of it, just beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then one more question, and then we'll dive into our list, and then we can get out of here, gentlemen. From Fenris. Shout out Fen, one of the OGs.
Heck yeah.
If you had to be locked in a game for a year, as in, for example, Sword Art Online, how that show is, what game would you pick and why?
What game would we pick? Do you have, either of y'all have an answer off the top? I want to think.
Cookie Clicker.
Cookie Clicker.
Actually, no. I just remember what the plot of Cookie Clicker actually is like.
I was about to say,
be there.
Bro, you really want to deal?
Maybe not.
You really want to deal with demonized grandmas?
I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the Grandmocalypse.
Love it.
I mean, you know, obviously, everyone's going to assume that Dalton would be like, "Oh, Skyrim," but fuck that. I don't want to get eaten by a dragon. Like, fuck that, bro.
2 weeks ago on Yabspot, you had this exact discussion, and you said you wanted to live in the world of Skyrim.
Yeah,
I think
I know, but I have.
That's what Jeremy said. Is you don't want to get eaten by a fucking dragon. Man.
Yeah, and I've since thought about it, and I completely agree. I don't want to get eaten by a dragon. It wouldn't be fun. I've watched them tear people around, throw them up in the air. I think the safe bet's going with a game like Stardew Valley.
Damn it! That was actually the exact game I was leaning towards because it's like the real world, but a little bit more magical. Yeah,
just to give me a little magic in my life, I'd be happy.
You know what? Let me live in Donkey Kong Country for a year. Ooh. Just chill out, eat bananas, hang with my apes. You know, that sounds pretty good to me.
Hell yeah. Plus, hopefully, that soundtrack would just be playing ambiently in the background.
God, yes, dude.
So good.
I just want to be an NPC in Tony Hawk 4 watching all the stupid shit that happens.
Oh man, you want to see real stupid shit? You should be an NPC in Tony Hawk's Underground 2 on the level that was based on some shit they did in Jackass, where it was this big downhill thing put together with like plywood and all kinds of other stuff. It looked dangerous as fuck, but apparently it was real. And real skaters would go down this fucking thing that was this big hill of just death.
I'm trying to think if there's an actual sincere answer I would give for like a specific world that I would really enjoy hanging out in, and like I think Stardew was actually a pretty good one. I'm trying to see if there's anything that comes to mind.
It's a hard question because like in so many of these games that you love, you also can identify that that's not a world you want to live in. Like you don't want to run into a cyber demon while you're trying to get a Starbucks. I mean, you know.
Yeah. As much as I would like to live in Persona 5, like I don't want to have to worry about going into people's palaces and things like that. Like, no.
Yeah, and it's like as much as I love Dragon Quest 11, I do not need to have dragons and slimes even invading and beating me up because I'm an NPC. A red slime will destroy me.
Yeah. And you know, if slimes were real, people would be posting pictures online like, okay, I know these slimes are dangerous, but look at their face. Like they do with bears. When they're like, bears are supposed to be so dangerous, then why do they have those cute little ears? Exactly, yeah. Nate held up his slime. Exactly. That thing's freaking adorable. and you'd walk over to it and be like, hey, little dude, and it would bite your hand off or something.
I think the problem with video games is that they exist. I mean, the settings are wonderful, but the settings couldn't be video game settings if there wasn't conflict in them. And as cool as it sounds to go around in a spaceship going pew pew at things, that means things go pew pew back at you.
Yeah, and we don't respawn unless you could respawn. Now, if this was like you're in the game, and you can respawn, because in Sword Art Online you couldn't respawn. If you die, you die. Spoilers for Sword Art Online, but like that's one of the main things for that show. So if you could respawn, that's a whole other conversation. Then throw me at whatever monster you want. I'm just going to keep grinding. I'll kill boars in the starter area till I'm level 75. Oh man,
I got nothing. I genuinely think
Stardew's a good answer.
I don't have anything better. Stardew. That's the one I was going to say if you hadn't said it.
Yeah. And if it wasn't Stardew, it would be Rune Factory, which is the same thing, just a little more magical.
Yeah, I'll take Animal Crossing then. We're just going to be in other knockoffs of the same thing.
There you go, dude. Animal Crossing, you just have to live with crippling debt, but you can pay it back whenever. Doesn't matter.
It's not crippling debt if it's a completely interest-free loan that has no expectation of actually ever being paid.
But you still have to pay it.
Theoretically. I mean, you don't have to. You just get yelled at every now and then. I get worse than yelled at if I don't pay loans in real life.
That's true. That's very true. All right, gentlemen, without going into too much detail, according to GamesRadar.com/best-Yakuza-games, the best Yakuza games ranked from, and this is just the top 10, right?
Number 10. I thought they'd go from 0 to 7.
Number 10. Yakuza Dead Souls from 2012.
Oh, okay. So we're including spin-offs and stuff.
Yeah,
that makes much more sense now. I don't know why I didn't think that.
All I know about Dead Souls is it's a spin-off, and it's like a shooter. Like, you have guns.
Is it like a zombie shooter? So you're like Kiryu shooting zombies?
Yeah.
I think believe so.
I think it was actually the first game that Majima was playable in.
Yeah, it says, perhaps it was only a matter of time until Sega decided that a non-canon spin-off that filled the lovely little suburb with zombies was a good idea. Quick side story, quick side thing that we didn't talk about. We mentioned last week that Kiryu doesn't kill anybody. That shit went right out the window in that one.
Oh my god, I can't believe we didn't talk about the Chapter 13 firefight.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up.
So, yeah, that went right out the window. I don't care what anybody says. Some people died that day.
So there's a scene in Chapter 13 where you were in a car and you're being chased by motorcycles, cars, and helicopters, and everybody's shooting at you, and you have a gun and you're shooting back.
Yeah, and it's like
cars are crashing, helicopters are crashing.
And they're not just crashing. Like, these cars are like flipping, rolling, and exploding. The helicopter crashes, it blows up in a big fiery fucking thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, but Kiryu does not kill anybody. Like, they're all fine. Like, yeah, what a fucking
I was talking about this scene to Paul earlier, and we came to this conclusion. Paul said technically the explosions killed those people, not Kiryu. And I'm like, oh yeah, Kiryu doesn't kill people. You might think his gun killed those people, but they say guns don't kill people. Guns just shoot bullets. Bullets hit fuel. Fuel causes combustion. Combustion causes explosions, and explosions kill people. Kiryu is so far up the chain that if you're going to blame him for killing him, you might as well blame his parents too.
Oh man, but yeah, that was just something that struck me funny when that whole scene was happening. All I can remember in my head was us talking with Paul about, yeah, Kiryu doesn't kill people. He just really hurts them bad, where they don't want to be alive.
That scene was fucking awesome, by the way. Somebody turns into like a shooter from a first person perspective, and it like the enemies like they're gonna shoot at you, and it has like the Virtua Cop style indicator that like spins and changes color to red when you're closer to getting shot. Like, it was. And you have cool.
Like a time stop ability for some reason. That's how you use your heat bar for.
Yeah,
I didn't use it once because I forgot about it the moment that instruction left the screen.
I didn't use it either. Don't feel bad, Willie.
But it was also really easy.
It was
like, I never
easy,
took
but it was
more than like 1/4 damage, so it was super fun. It was like so thrilling.
It absolutely.
It was just like, what the hell? What the hell?
Yeah.
I'm shooting a rocket down from the sky with a QuickTime animation. What is going on? Is this still Yakuza 0?
Yeah, it absolutely reminded me of Time Cop or like a Time Crisis, like those style games in the arcade for sure.
I think Virtua Cop's probably the closest one, just because that one was also a Sega joint.
So number 9, so coming after Dead Souls, is Yakuza 3, which came out in 2009. First game on the PS3. Yakuza 3 showed what the developer could do with the new processing power. But the game's transition from Japan to Western shores saw a fair amount of content cut thanks to the cultural differences. And it says Sega thought that a Japanese history quiz and a mini game set in a hostess club didn't mesh well with American audiences, which obviously they've learned that was wrong by now. But
I wonder if they added some of that back in the HD versions of the game.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. There'd be something to look into, though, for sure. Number 8, Judgment. So, the spinoff, Judgment.
I thought Paul was talking about that one being really good. I mean, I guess this whole series is really good, so...
Yeah, so take these rankings for what you will. They all seem like, if they're anything as good as 0, like... It's for Judgment, it just says the investigation mechanics may be shallow and some of the tailing missions may be frustrating, but it does have its charms.
Okay.
And I'm just giving summaries of what the paragraphs say about them. Number 7, Yakuza 4. They shifted the focus off of Kiryu alone and placed you firmly in the shoes of 3 other protagonists as well.
3 others of 4 protagonists?
Yeah, in Yakuza 3 there are 4 protagonists.
That was a 5, yeah.
No, that was Yakuza 4.
Oh.
That was 4.
It was number 7, Yakuza 4.
Okay.
I might have said 5, but I meant 4.
I heard 4. It sounds like the series might have had a little slump after the first 2 then, when they were changing console generations.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that they... I think what was it, Paul saying this was a pretty niche series until 0. Yeah. Number 6 is Yakuza 6, The Song of Life.
The Song of Life.
Number 6 is the conclusion of Kiryu's story.
I don't ever want it to end, though.
Says Yakuza 6 is something of a departure from previous titles as Kiryu's various fighting styles are merged into one seamless set of melee moves.
Huh.
And the developers opted to travel more in an RPG-inspired route when it came to progression and character development.
So, it'll never stay.
Number 5, Yakuza Kiwami.
Okay, good.
Majima evolves from a cold-blooded, underdeveloped rival that exists only as a rival force to Kiryu and becomes a lovable character in his own right. Driven by his love of combat and his, parenthesis, confusing love of Kiryu. Number 4 is Yakuza Kiwami 2. If you've ever played Yakuza 2 before, Kiwami 2 is absolutely still worth the play. Enhanced cutscenes, better looking environments, and more fluid combat makes this a bigger, badder, bolder experience than the PS2 classic. Nice. Come for the upgrades, stay for the playable Virtua Fighter 2.1 arcade cabinet.
Ooh.
Number 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Okay.
So, that one, it's the RPG. We all know. I'm really looking forward to playing Like a Dragon eventually.
I'm looking forward to playing all of these. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think the only thing that might hold us back from playing Like a Dragon immediately is just wanting to see what happens next with their boy Kiryu,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I almost don't want to leave him behind, even though I'm told we'll love Ichiban too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I for some reason my brain just then blanked for a second. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Like a Dragon's completely new story, new people. Number 2, Yakuza 5. Yakuza 5 benefits from everything that came before it. Every single Yakuza title that was developed en route to Yakuza 5 contributed something to the stunner of a game. Perhaps a nod to the eponymous number. You have 5 mind-boggling cities to explore and 5 characters to control.
Wow.
Holy shit.
As you unpick the game's surprisingly intimate storyline with more freedom than you ever have in a Yakuza game before. The best moments in the game speak for themselves. You can fight a bear. You can look behind the curtain as to what it means to be a famous idol. Or you can take a job as a down-and-out taxi driver. Hey!
There's your taxi driver.
That's fucking awesome.
Yep, nice.
And number 1, Yakuza 0.
It kind of sucks that we started with the best, but I'm still not afraid to go down the hole of the ones that aren't as good, because this game is so good that, yeah, I'm cool with playing ones that aren't as good as it.
Yeah. The description under this one is just, we're ending it where it all began. Yakuza 0 is a prequel to the events of the rest of the series, and actually a great entry point for anyone wanting to start exploring what the series is all about, which obviously we agree. Played from the perspective of both mainstays Kiryu and Goro Majima, you could ask for no better introduction to a world and tone of Yakuza as a whole, and then in this campy, emotional, dramatic 80s romp. From genuinely heart-wrenching interactions with the city's down-and-out vagabonds to some properly funny send-ups of 80s icons, we're looking at you, Miracle Johnson. Yakuza 0 shifts from the absurd to the sublime with deft ease. Perhaps the most celebratory, joyful, and sardonic of all the Yakuza games. This absolute delight of a title is even available to sample on Game Pass, which I don't know if it's still on Game Pass. Yeah, this is an older article.
Holds up. But, they put Yakuza 0 at the top. It deserves it. I think the Yakuza HD titles are on Game Pass right now, but I don't think Yakuza or Kiwami and Kiwami 2 are. Yeah,
Kiwami 1 and 2 are not, but the other ones are, in fact, because I was looking the other day when I resubbed the Game Pass, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I can at least, if I wanted to check those out, they're there. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, man. Started with the one that everyone basically says is the best one, but I like you said, I'm not letting that deter me because I'm all in on this story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And this just means to me, I'm like, fuck yeah, we got 6 more games of Kiryu.
6 more games that I'm absolutely looking forward to at this point.
It's like when I first played Ys 8. And I started looking into the Ys games, and I was like, oh, you're Adol in all of these. So they're all stories about Adol and his friends and stuff. That's awesome. It's exactly how I feel about this now, too. I'm like, fuck yeah, Kiryu, let's do this shit. Yeah. Which ropes us around to our ratings. So, who would like to go first? Willie, you want to go first?
There is really nothing I would change about this game.
Word. Okay, so if you could put that into a number for me.
Yeah, it's 10. This is it. This is 10 nuggets out of real estate, baby. This is. I mean, I ended up playing 50 hours of this game over the last 5 days.
Yeah, brutal.
Like this is just a game that I wouldn't change anything about it. I had a great time with it. It was every bit. You know, sometimes people tell you that something is going to be great and you're going to love it and it'll be one of your favorite things ever. And when you actually get to it, you're like, there's no way it's going to live up to it. And this did. This is every bit the game I wanted it to be and more. And it was as funny and as heartwarming and as interesting and as exciting. And it's great. It's a 10 out of 10. It's perfect.
Okay. Willie. Nate, I'm looking directly at Nate and said, Willie. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, 100% agreement. I only regret that this is a scale out of 10, that I can't go over 10 because I absolutely would go over 10. This is now definitely in my top 3 games of all time, with Dragon Quest XI and Hollow Knight. So yeah, it's a very good game. So 100% 10 eye patches out of 10 Kiryus.
Okay. I've played a lot of games that have a lot of good stories, right? I'd say that's one of my things is RPGs with story driven. Like, I'm all about it. Not since I played, like, okay, so Tales of Berseria grabbed me like Persona 5 grabbed me. It didn't take me to the level that Persona 5 did, but it grabbed me like that. And I'm going to put Yakuza 0 right there, where it grabbed me like Persona did. Didn't quite take me to where Persona did, but it took me further emotionally than Tales of Berseria did. And that's saying something because, like, Tales of Berseria was a fucking emotional ride, all right? So I absolutely, like, again, I don't know if this is the first episode that we've all 3 handed out 10s for a game. It might be, it might not be. Listeners, call us out on that if we're wrong. It is
because I've only handed out 10 like once or twice.
Yeah. I'm going to give it 10 Nishiki out of 10 Kiryu-chan.
I have to say that out of all the games we've played, like, I've never played a game with this good of a story that was not an RPG. So this is the first time I've played a game that I think is this incredible story-wise that wasn't a JRPG. So
yeah. And I would like very closely consider this an action RPG. Only because of the stat building and stuff. Now, if you had more equipment that affected your stats and things, that would make it more RPG-esque.
I can see that.
But as something that's kind of like, okay, so here's if this line is what makes an RPG, Yakuza 0 is pushing it. You know what I mean? It's not quite there, but it's close. But yeah, absolutely, dude. The fucking story, like, I didn't expect it from an action game.
Right.
You know, I went in expecting I'll be back levels of action, and like, you know, the story's there, but you're there to see the explosions and Arnold Schwarzenegger beat up people and you know, like, but nah, man, this thing really drew me in. It was really, really quite good, man. So that wraps up Yakuza. Before we get into the housekeeping, that means that it is Willie's host pick. So, sir, it is your choice. You are going to be the buffer between us and Final Fantasy VII. So what you got for us, my homeboy?
Well, we've just gone from one 4-week, mega long narrative game with a epic story that is localized to one country, but still is a huge over one country over the course of a couple weeks, but it's still a massive tale that has so much human interaction. And in a couple weeks, we'll be going to a world-spanning game that is another completely epic story that takes place over quite a while and has a whole bunch of confusing characters and interesting plots and shit. So I think we just need something without a story and just have fun on our own. I know the last game I did was also another non-narrative game, but I think in general, by myself, I usually prefer games without stories to play. Like, I think most of the games with stories I've played over the last couple of years that have been longer than like 5 hours have all been for this show. So I'm actually gonna, I think I might have hinted at this before, or I might have said something completely different, but I'm going back to what I was going to do in the first place, and I'd like to do Planet Coaster.
All right.
Let's get some simulation going on.
Yes. Fucking hell yeah. I love Planet Coaster so goddamn much. Oh, dude, I can't wait. So, I have an idea. Now, this is just something if we all three have time for it, right? At some point this week, I want, and I mean, I can do it and stream it to the Discord, or one of you can, but I want all three of us to have a sandbox mode. And we just, like, one of us picks a ride, tells kind of the other person playing, like, oh, let's put it over here, and yada, and let's work together and build a park.
Heck yeah.
But then also, like, you know, have our separate where we're playing through the normal game and things like that. But I think, like, doing like a Steam Machine Land or something and seeing how we could do
Steam
that.
Machine.
Yeah. I think it would be beautiful. We could maybe even build a coaster, call it the Steam Machine. That would be fucking fantastic. I think that'd be fun. We'll figure it out, man. Good fucking choice, bro. Like, I'm excited.
I almost picked a truck simulator, but a truck simulator is probably going to win pretty soon. So I didn't want to double dip us.
Yeah, that one is it's still on the poll. It's going to be on the poll until
Final Fantasy VII, until
our next episode, and then that will be pulled, and Final Fantasy VII will be up, and then we'll see the next.
If it's really the Final Fantasy, how are there 7 of them?
Well, what did Paul say? Push glasses through brain.
On that note, let's clean this house, Dalton.
Yeah, buddy. If sorry, it's lower than I normally look on the notes. I was like, where's all my stuff? It's down there.
Body and you think of sex.
If you want to come check us out on social media and things like that, check us out at the Steam Machine Podcast on Twitter. I think it's facebook.com/the Steam Machine Podcast, where you can find us on Facebook if that's your thing. But where we are most active is the Discord, which is bit.ly/TSMP Discord, all capital letters. Type that in. It'll give you a link. It'll ask you to join. Come talk to us. Vote on these fan polls that we reference. Talk to us about Yakuza. Talk to us about any fucking game you want to, really. Whatever you feel like. If you want to support the show, which we would very much appreciate, it's helping me literally keep the lights on, and I appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you who do donate. It's patreon.com/the Steam Machine Podcast. And if you donate $1 or more, you'll get your episodes early every time we release one. And if you'd like to donate $10 or more, you get a special shout out at the end of each episode, like these wonderful, wonderful people: Nate Sir Cogsworth, the 7th of Juniper, Jeff, the original expendable Mr. Syllables himself, old Jeffy Lube, and Arisar Adam, otherwise known as Arisar Adam. And shout out to his podcast, Revival and Extinction. It's man, that new editor he's got is doing a good job. I'm really happy for him.
I kind of hear he's an asshole though, but you know, you can only get so much out of a guy.
You know, all artistry is madness in one way or another.
Yeah, this guy's a really big asshole. Here's the biggest asshole in Keystone. Check out Now the Nightmare.
Yeah, if you want some of my music, you can start to hear it in my voice that I've been talking and I don't feel good. nilethenightmare.bandcamp.com if you like our intro music and our outro music, which this week the outro is going to be a little different, so don't worry about that. But check us out over there, or check me out over there. Also, if you want to click any of these links, is bit.ly/Steam Machine Podcast, capitalized phonetically. There you can find links to like my Twitter, Nate's Twitter. I don't think Willie uses his Twitter, but I think I might have a button on there for him anyway. The merch, if you want to get a shirt, tsmpproductions.threadless.com. And I'm trying to run through all this stuff. Oh, shout out the Abs Pod, yet another BS podcast that me and my buddy Jeremy do each week. And shout out to the JRPG Report, which is a weekly JRPG news show that I do. So if you like the sound of my voice and you'd like to hear more of it, you can hear me on those two other shows.
It usually sounds better than it does right now. He's sick.
Yes, I am doing my best though. And Nate, you have some things on the website that are buttons and links to your stuff as well, sir. So you go ahead and promote your stuff.
Yeah, it's still kind of on my hiatus from Twitch, but you can still find me on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok at TurtleBearMan. I will start streaming at some point again eventually.
Hell yeah! Oh, and we do have a TikTok for the Steam Machine Podcast as well.
Sure, we do.
That Nate put together for us. So if you'd like to go check that out, is it just at the Steam Machine Podcast?
The Steam Machine Podcast on TikTok. Yeah.
All right, then you can find us over there. Willie, got anything that you'd like to plug, promote, anything?
You know that I've talked to dentists before, and they've said that if you just use the little like handled disposable flossers, that's pretty much as good as flossing. And if you're like not going to do it at all unless you use the real thing, then you might as well just use the little flossers. So get those little flossing things.
Nice.
They're nice.
I want to say I use those and they're wonderful. So
yeah,
I back that 100%. Well, all right, gentlemen.
I never enjoyed that cutting off your circulation to your fingers, trying to wrap them around like they taught us. You know?
Oh, I know. Like you're sitting there and you're flossing, and you look down, and the tips of your fingers are purple, and you're like, "Oh, that can't be fucking healthy." Yeah, floss your teeth. Don't be like me and have to have teeth surgery and all that kind of shit. So floss your teeth, motherfuckers. On that note, they are the Brothers of Destruction. My name's Dalton. Catch us next 2 weeks for some Planet Coaster, and as always, guys,
breaking the law, breaking the vow,
breaking the
world, tenderness.
I wish I remembered the words to the other one of that. Baby, I love you. You love me. That's all I remember.
Kazuma Kiryu rises to lieutenant advisor of the Dojima family, known and feared as the Dragon of Dojima. In December of 1995, an incident that will change his life forever occurs, and Kiryu serves 10 years in prison. In one massive struggle after another, Kazuma Kiryu is drawn back into the raging conflicts of the Yakuza. His current whereabouts are unknown. Goro Majima rejoins the Shimano family as its captain, where his ferocity earns him the title Mad Dog of Shimano. Feared and uncontrollable, his legends rival those of the Dragon of Dojima. Majima continues to play a wild card role in the events that shaped the Yakuza. Alongside his sworn brother, Taiga Saejima, he eventually becomes an unpredictable pillar of the Tojo clan. Under the aegis of Sera and the Tojo clan, the area around the empty lot underwent a dramatic revitalization. Today, a new emblem of Kamurocho stands proudly atop that storied lot, the Millennium Tower. Akira Nishikiyama, and his role in the empty lot incident earns him standing as he climbs the Dojima ranks with Kiryu. Sworn brother since the days at the Sunflower Orphanage, he stays Kiryu's confidant. But in 1995, well, that's a dark year. In the events that follow, while Kiryu serves time in jail, Nishikiyama becomes a changed man. His ambition to climb the ranks of the Tojo clan steers his fate. Dojima family captain Shintaro Kazuma becomes a stalwart ally of the third chairman Sera with a significant influence in the clan. In 1995, as events begin to shake the foundation of the Tojo clan, Kazuma rises to direct patriarch. In this position of power, Kazuma begins to guide the Tojo clan's fate with all the finesse of the legendary tactician that he is. Futoshi Shimano and the Shimano family became a pillar of the Tojo clan in the wake of Sohei Dojima's decline. Shimano continues to form alliances, including those with the Omi alliance of Kansai and the Snake Flower Triad. In 2005, as the clan is thrown into turmoil, Shimano steps from the shadows in a new gambit to rise to the top. Following Takashi Nihara's retirement, Nikyo Consortium President Masaru Sera rises to the Tojo clan chairman. There, he enjoys a long and stable reign over the Eastern Japanese's Yakuza. His political connections earn a great deal of money for the Tojo clan. But in 2005, his actions send the clan into another chaotic upheaval. Dojima family patriarch Sohei Dojima became guardian of the third Tojo clan chairman Sera, but soon falls from grace. His captain, Shintaro Kazuma, assumes de facto control of the family, leaving Dojima to languish in his glorious past. On a stormy night in 1995, a gunshot rings out from the Dojima family office that will reverberate throughout Tojo clan history. Jikaimade Kiryu. Jikamade Yakuza. Stick around for my vocal cover of Rain from this game. We love you all. Take it easy.
Someone screaming through the door. You're the chill. Someone in the backstab.